What's up, everybody? I'm Scott,
I'm Jason.
and you are listening to Liquid Carnage. What's going on, my friend?
Oh, man. Another bad week of fantasy football. I'm done.
Are
I'm
you done?
toast. Oh, dude, I'm already 0-2, man. I'm like the worst team in the league.
Oh, man, I'm set. Dude, I had a great week.
Oh, you did?
Oh, dude, everyone that could have done well for me, knock on wood, did well. And I still have 3 players to go in recording on Monday.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so,
Jeez.
yeah, I feel all right. I feel A-okay. It's a
Yeah.
long season, though, because as you saw this week in the NFL, one injury can change one team's complexion for the rest of the year.
Oh, that's true. Okay,
And
well,
I want to say I'm sorry to any of the 49er fans out there, but sorry, not sorry. You guys are done. I hope everybody heals and they come back great for a strong 2021 campaign, because you guys have to play that fourth place schedule that's oh so coveted to go from worst to first.
well, what I think is interesting, though, in that division, 1-1 is the fourth place team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once again, the NFC West is the NFC best, baby.
Oh, dude, there are going to be so many shootouts. Your boys are looking strong. My boys are looking strong. It's going to be a fun ride for the next 3 to 4 months, providing there's no COVID sidetracks. You know?
Yeah, Ralph's boys are looking strong. Shout out to Ralph's boys.
Yeah. Any of the 49er fans out there, like I said, I'm sorry, not sorry. I really have no sympathy for them. Oh, man, but what a weekend. What a great weekend. I actually ended up going down to Havasu this weekend just to get out of town.
Oh, what'd you do down there?
Well, we went to go check out the Halloween store because there's no Halloween store up in Kingman this year.
Uh-oh.
And it's just hot down there still. It's the middle of September. It's still 110.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, that gets so draining.
Yeah. No, it's bad like that. The heat's starting to cool down here in Phoenix, so we're happy about that. We're getting into the summer, or the end of summer, first part of fall, so I'm excited about that.
Oh, yeah, we should. Well, by the time this episode airs, it will be the fall. So happy fall, everyone. The fun is just beginning. We're in the very end of 2020. This is where it's about to get realer than I guess it's been.
I brewed up an essential oils tasting like rum this weekend.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
How'd that turn out?
It didn't turn out as well as my essential oils with the vodka taste. I took one of my jars of essential oils and infused it with coffee beans. Ooh. And it made an amazing espresso martini. Oh my gosh. It was good.
I would like to try a essential oil coffee bean martini. I think it sounds delicious.
Oh, it was delicious. Sam and I broke them up. I broke my essential oils into 4 mason jars of about 450 milliliters, and we polished off one of those on Friday night. It was all gone. Yeah.
Now the important question is, how did you feel on Saturday morning?
Oh, I had no hangover at all. None really? Whatsoever. But we did switch over to Screwball, and and then we finished the bottle and half of that. So,
wow. So you guys were not messing around.
Yeah, no, we were doing it. We were hitting it. Yeah.
I understand, man. I sat at a friend's house. They live way out north of town, and drank 2 bottles of red wine on Friday night, and we just sat and watched the world go by.
I gotta admit, sometimes just sitting and just not caring about anything in the world, just with good friends and a nice drink and just talking is so amazing. Yeah. It's so amazing.
Yeah, and that's really what we did. It was a long week last week, and we had some friends call. We had no plans on Friday night, so Janice and I went out there and just their kids played with her kids, and we just sat in the back porch and just watched the world go by, watched the sunset, and just one of those just peaceful evenings.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I've noticed that when you know me, when I get drinking a little bit, I get around people, and sometimes their guard comes down a little bit, and you can learn if you're sincere and you're not just taking advantage of a situation, but you're just sincerely talking with someone, having a little bit of liquid courage in you, you can really find out a lot about people and how, even though we're so different in so many ways, we're a lot the same too. We have the same, hopes and dreams and fears and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. And I think that's human nature. I think you find out that we're really not all that different once you really get down to it,
So I have to ask you a question, Scott. Have you ever heard of the Appalachian Trail?
Absolutely. I know a lot of people hike that every year, and that is the one that is from Tennessee up to the Canadian border in Maine, correct?
Yeah, it's actually Georgia. It starts in Georgia. The first 75 miles in Georgia, and then it travels up through the western or the eastern seaboard and then up through, and it ends up in Maine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyways, as you know, I've been nerding it up a little bit, and I've been reading a book. And I decided, well, I have a friend who is really like, as soon as he finishes college, he's
Mm-hmm.
doing the Appalachian Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me if I wanted to go with him. When I thought, oh man, I don't know, hiking for 6 months.
Yeah, that's not a weekend trek.
Yeah, no. Even if you do it in sections, it's 2,300 miles, so it's a long trek, right? Well,
Yeah.
they have what's called through trekkers, which are basically they just start and don't stop until the very end.
Wow.
So I've been reading this book, and I find it fascinating, but I also am a little overwhelmed by, could I do that for 6 months? Go on this trip and camp out every day and not have it really real access to a nice shower or bedroom or anything like that.
Well, could you do that to friend for 6 months every day and not want to kill your friend?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the guy who wrote my book, he did it with his wife. They did like their 25th wedding anniversary. And so they did this, and they met all kinds of people on the trail. But they said they ran into a group of 3 guys where there were 2 hikers, and then about half a mile down the trail, there was one hiker by himself who I guess got pissed off at his buddies. And he just left them. He just said, I'm doing it by myself.
Oh,
well,
wow.
Then they ran into them later though, and the friends had all reconciled. But still, I thought, oh God, that's all I need. Ruin a friendship.
Right, especially somewhere outside of Georgia where there's no one really,
Now, you were in the Boy Scouts, so you learned a lot about living outdoors and surviving out in the doors. Do you think you could do something like this?
Okay, yeah, sure. Let's go with I learned stuff. Yeah, I probably did. I forgot more than I've learned. I'll openly admit.
Okay.
I could do that in sections. I don't know if I'd ever want to do that for 6 months.
Yeah.
I know how my knees feel after a 5-mile hike in the Wallapies with different elevations. So I can't even begin to imagine how much of a toll that would take on my body. But I would be down for sections of it.
My friend said that he read somewhere that 60% of the hikers stop after the first month.
Really?
And the first month only gets you through like Tennessee, North Carolina. It takes about that long just to get through Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I thought, oh man, that does sound kind of hard. But he said 60% of the people like stop after the first month. So I have a feeling that a lot of people start out thinking all gung ho, and I'm going to do this. It's going to be so great. And then, they run into that wall, whether it's a physical wall or, according to this book, more of a mental wall where you lose your desire, your drive. You get down because some days it's rainy, some days it's cold, some days you haven't slept in a comfortable area in weeks, that you just get burned out. So I wonder if I have the mental strength to do it.
There's that too, but there's also the Pacific Coast Trail that goes from the California-Mexico border all the way up through Washington.
That's the longest one, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you get down, yeah.
I think that's the longest one. Appalachian Trail is the shortest one, and then the third one is it's kind of like it's like through the Rockies. It's like the one through the Rockies, like Colorado and stuff, and I guess you'd feel as a great sense of accomplishment. I was talking to Noreen about it, and I said, I'm reading about this, and I don't know if I have a tough time with Noreen's gone like 3 or 4 days. I couldn't imagine not seeing her for 6 months.
Oh, absolutely. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's a mental toll, a physical toll, an emotional toll that really can happen to a person, that gets taken on a person when they go through such an epic adventure as that.
That's interesting that you said that, because that was her first comment. She goes, Jason, it would change you. It would change you. And frankly, I don't know if I want you to go through that kind of metamorphic change. And I didn't think about it from that standpoint, but you're right. I mean, when you get that removed from technology, that removed from society, and that into nature, and how, that mental strain that you put yourself through every day by getting up when you don't want to, and hurting a little bit when you want to just stop, maybe it would change me.
Yeah. I'm also going to throw something else at you that's a little offbeat, but also a very real possibility.
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah. There's tons of animals. Now he's the book. The guy didn't really register that he saw a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, but he did see a bear. He did see some wild boar, deer, and some wolves. So I mean, there's obviously dangers out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bring that up because while you're busy reading about the Great American Adventure and the Great American Spirit, I recently read a book, and I think I talked about it on the show, or did I talk to you about it privately? A book by Max Brooks called De-Evolution.
Now, wait a minute. Max Brooks. Why does that name sound familiar? He wrote something else, right?
He wrote World War Z, and he's also Mel Brooks' son.
Oh, okay. Who was the guy? I thought his name was Max, who wrote that book about dating, some dating book. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
Yeah, maybe that's got to be something else because Max
Okay.
Brooks wrote World War Z, and this is his follow up. It's another horror book. It's De-Evolution. It's basically a journal of a woman they found a year after a massacre where Mount Rainier explodes in Washington, and her little community gets cut off from the world and get overrun by Sasquatch. And
Oh.
it sounds kind of hokey, but the way it's written, it's so well written and so well done. I highly recommend it without going into too much detail. I know it sounds kind of hokey, but it's a fun story that kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat, especially as they fall into that descent of, oh my God, no one's going to rescue us. What do we do? How do we do this? And it becomes a story about fight or flight and how different people react in different situations.
Well, did I mention to you that the book I read right before the Appalachian Trail was Sophie's Choice?
No.
It was a very famous movie, and I don't know how I picked up the book, but it was one of those. I have an email subscription where they send me like ebooks that you can buy for really cheap, like $1 or $2.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the books was Sophie's Choice. I had never seen the movie before. Have you seen the movie?
No, I know it's been out for a long time. I know that.
Well, this is one of the longer books I read. Usually, I try to keep them like 200 to 300 pages. This was 600 pages. It was a
Oh
long
wow.
book. It took me the full week to read it. I was reading 100 pages a day, and it was taking me the full time. Usually, I can finish a book in 3 or 4 days, but this one was taking me a long time. But yeah, if you want to read a really hard book to read, Sophie's Choice. It was a good book, but it was a hard book to read. Well, then I made the mistake of watching the movie after, and the book had so many things that the movie could never fit into 2.5 hours. I made
Yeah.
that mistake. You shouldn't watch the movie after you read the book because you're just going to
Yeah.
be disappointed.
Yeah, you get so disappointed. And I'll go back to World War Z with that. The book is a very well written account of how people survive the zombie apocalypse. And there's a lot of points in that book where I read it, and I think our buddy Dean read it too, and he had the same reaction where you have to stop yourself, remind yourself, this isn't real. This isn't actually happening. And that's a good author telling a good story when you have to remind yourself that this is not in fact reality, you know?
Well, I will say this about Sophie's Choice: this author did the same thing. He wrote the book in a first person,
Mm-hmm.
and the main character is a young writer, and I thought it was biographical because a lot of the references are to World War II and famous people in World War II on the German side. And so I thought he was writing it biographically. It turns out no, the real author never met a woman named Sophie, never lived in Brooklyn as a young writer. But just like that, he wrote it so well that you think it's got to be real. This is a
Yeah.
real,
And
real story that we're reading, a true thing that happened.
and then you turn around and you make the movie, and the movie has the same basic premise, but it's not really the same story all the way. And that's what happened with World War Z. They had to basically rewrite the whole script because they couldn't do what the book made it.
Yeah.
So they had to have like Brad Pitt just tell one story, which was fine. I mean, it was a
Mm-hmm.
really good movie, but it wasn't as good as the book. And I find myself when I start reading books like that now, picturing, all right, if this was the movie, how would it get made? You know, how could they do this? How could they do that? And there's this one scene in De-Evolution where, we had it on audiobook too. So we're driving down to Havasu on Saturday and we're listening to the very end of it. and there's a scene in there where one of the murders or killings is so gruesome. I kind of looked at Janice as like, how would you even do that in a movie? Because it's so significant the way it's done. If you don't show it that way, it takes away from the story itself. But if you show that, it almost becomes an NC-17 movie.
So yeah, that's interesting because that was the same way. Man, it's so weird that you're saying this because that's exactly the same thing with the Sophie's Choice. I was reading the book and thinking, how did they make a movie out of this? And not only did they make a movie, but this is like an Academy Award winning movie. I mean,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking, and I watched the movie and there was so much that they just left out. I just don't know how they could, they had to rewrite the whole script basically. And it was, uh, obviously I was disappointed, but I think most movies disappoint from the books. I very rarely have I read a book where I thought the movie was better.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I could ever say that's been the case where I've liked the movie better than the book.
The only one that I know for a fact, I did like A River Runs Through It better as a movie than I did as the book.
Well, it's because it's only 2.5 hours of your life versus 2 months of your life trying to get through that story.
No,
So it's a little bit
that's the
different.
thing. The book itself is only about 120 pages, but
Mm-hmm.
2/3 of the book is all about fly fishing,
Oh,
like different
that's
kinds of
rough.
hooks. And yeah, it wasn't as poetic as the movie did, whoever wrote the screenplay to the movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just to think about the whole process of writing a story that you're going to have published, and then someone takes that story and turns it into a movie, and they can only take the essence. They can't translate everything, from the pages to the screen, because that was even the same way in Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, and that's where the nerd base really revolted. Like when the Lord of the Rings movies came out, that's where they had to come up with the extended versions because they had to add more into it to keep the fanboys from revolting to watch the rest of them.
Right, right.
It's
Yeah,
just an
no, I
interesting process to me.
yeah, I think I do have a question about your audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
Are the audiobooks word for word the same as the books?
Yeah,
So someone can read aloud a book in 4 hours.
yeah. Like this one was 9.5 hours,
Okay,
so
so okay,
they
that
vary.
makes
Like
sense.
yeah, it depends. Like the longer ones, because we were looking at going to see Tom in Colorado at some point, so we are just kind of looking at stories to listen to, and there's something like 12 hours, 16 hours, some 30 plus because they're giant novels or series.
Where do you get your books?
I use the book app on my iPhone
Uh-huh.
and Audible that's owned by Amazon.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll
Because
try that. I've been reading so much lately that I haven't really done an audio book yet, but I always thought it would be kind of interesting to do an audiobook, but I always wondered if they cut out parts of the book.
no, because I read or I listened to Unfuck Yourself before I read it by Gary John Bishop, and same with Stop Doing That Shit, his first two books. And listening to it, I picked up more out of it than actually reading it
Okay.
because he's got a Scottish brogue. So when he talks, it's very aggressive, and you can't help but listen.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and to me, I visually can picture a lot of the stories going on as I'm hearing them. So what I appreciate about the evolution, it's they had a lot of famous people playing different parts, and like Nathan Fillion had a part in it. He's a very people in nerd culture will know who Nathan Fillion is from Firefly,
Oh, I
The
remember
Rookie.
from the one where he was a writer, a mystery writer.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
um,
A, a
oh,
lot
I
of
don't.
people might know. Well, a lot of people might know from Doctor Horrible sing along blog as Captain Hammer.
Okay.
And then Judy Greer, who's that one lady from Everything.
Oh, I love Judy Greer.
Yeah, she's the main voice of the lady writing the journal. So the story's told from her perspective,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
she does such a good job, like portraying like the fear and the anxiety and the anger through all of this. And for me, the audiobooks on something like that just help me create such a vivid picture that I might not necessarily grab from reading because sometimes you just start reading to read and
Hmm.
you're not sure what you pick up on because your mind starts to wander.
I think that what I've found quite interesting is how difficult it is to get started with reading with, with all the social media and the short little 15-second blurbs that come on the news and the little. go from the short thing to focusing for, like you said, 9.5 hours reading a book.
Yeah.
It's a hard adjustment, especially in today's world, to get to it. However, now that I've gotten used to it, like I've broken free from the social media, needing that just quick blurb and move on. I really enjoy reading it. Like mentally, my mind seems to just go.
So you're reading everything through an ebook, through non-actual paperbacks or hardbacks, right?
It really depends. Most of the books I do read are ebooks, only because it's easier for me to carry like 3 or 4 books at a time. If I go somewhere, I can just have my books there. But I do have a library of books that I've started reading, like going back and reading through those as well. So I do read paper books from time to time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I've noticed that, and I don't know. Do you ever find this when you read a book? Sometimes the book that you read may not have, I don't know, everything that you wanted, or it may not be the best book. But I pick up 1 or 2 things in the book that make me think about something that spurs on the next book, or makes me think about,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't, I never thought of that before.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of books do that for me, where it makes me research like a central topic or a specific idea, and I fall down those rabbit holes.
Hmm.
So we finished that book over the weekend, and as I was doing my just weekly roundup stuff, getting ramped up for the week when I got to work today, I usually have YouTube things on the background, like ghost stories, creepy pasta, things like that, just interesting, like little horror vignettes.
Uh-huh.
And I found myself like going down the Bigfoot rabbit hole with people talking about their different encounters and different stories. And there's so many interesting ones. And I came across one that Travel Channel did a whole special on, one in the Mojave Desert right outside of Kingman, called the Sandman. That
Ooh.
that 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 is in like the Mojave Desert, like through Southern California, northwestern Arizona, Nevada, and Utah, and all the sightings of him in the desert and whatnot.
Oh, good
And
Lord.
I've never heard that legend.
That no,
So
that scares me. That scares me a little bit. Oh.
well, the ironic one part is the next one was about Bigfoot sightings all the way from the Mogollon Rim to Williams.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's just like, just you fall down those rabbit holes. Like, all right, well, now I want to find out more. Like, are there more in this area? Not that I want to go Bigfoot Sasquatch hunting, because I want no part of that. But it's curious just to kind of see like what people say, what their encounters were. You just fall down those rabbit holes.
Well, I've learned something about myself that you're not going to like, but
What's
since
that?
I stopped watching football,
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of free time on Sundays. I didn't realize how much time I put invested into watching football and
You have about eight.
accomplishing basically nothing.
You have 8 to 10 free hours on Sunday when you don't watch football.
Yeah, and I've been using them. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, that's good, buddy.
But that
I'm
maybe
glad
that's why I'm losing at fantasy football, because I'm not paying attention to what I should be paying attention
that's what a lot of us do the other 6 months out of the year on Sunday.
to.
We're productive.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah,
know.
no, I'm glad that you're reading. It sounds like you read some very fascinating books to me. Those are kind of different.
Yeah, it's what makes me laugh. It's because I know the style. It's another area where you and I are so different.
Yes.
What you read versus what I read. Because if I'm going to read something, it's either going to be self help or it's going to be something so weird and bizarre. Like this I just happened to stumble across this book, the
Hmm.
De-Evolution book, and I'm glad I did, because what a story.
Yeah.
But it makes me go looking for the next one. That's what we were talking about last night. It's like, all right, we finished this. Now we need to plan another road trip so we can start listening to the next book. But what book do we want that to be?
Oh, you
You
know
know?
what? Maybe I should do that with Noreen. That sounds like a good couples thing.
Yeah, it is, because it spurred on a lot of conversations that you wouldn't normally think you want to have with your significant other.
Now, does Janice have any sort of reservations about you kind of weirding her out by being a reader?
No, I mean she does it too. I mean that's kind of how we first started to bond, was we were reading the same books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think it's not weirded out at all. We're both just very busy now because when we started dating, it was kind of, I don't want to say in the height of COVID, but everything was starting to slowly open back up. So we've been basically shut in for 3 months at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Hmm.
you're down to nothing but reading and keeping to yourself. So we just happened to have the same book lists at that point that we were working through, and that just kind of got the ball rolling.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah, I think it's
if I go on the Appalachian Trail, I'm going to need to have a book or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, you're not gonna be able to hike 7 days a week. There's gonna be a few days in there where it's just basically just rest mentally and physically.
Yeah, no, they said that they were not on any speed record pace or anything. Like when they were tired and they wanted a day off, they just took a day off. Or a lot of times it rains so much that you get kind of just downtrodden with the rain and the mud, and so you just take a day just to dry off, get in a hotel room, sleep, get warm, and do that. So.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think I'm going to do it. As we come kind of full circle toward the end of this, I don't think I'm going to do it. I just, like I said, I, I think about being away from Noreen for 6 months, and that's a long time. But it also scares me that, yeah, maybe I would change. Maybe a person changes when they do something like that.
yeah, and I don't have to find a guest host for 6 months, man. That's be weird making them play you. I don't
Yeah.
like that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. If we could do the podcast like a roving reporter, maybe. Like I
Oh,
could go,
maybe.
every
We've had a lot of grand ideas like that over the years with road trips and whatever else. So it's
we have been kind of slacking in that regard, haven't we?
yeah. Well, there's a world pandemic through all this, so that kind of put a lot
Do
of
as
ideas we have.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do, kind of deal.
Yeah, yeah. Go out there, live your life. We'll get out there eventually. It's just we've been very busy with life transitions and changes, and
I know,
you know.
I know.
But at
I
least
know.
we're out here every week giving you brand new material, brand new shows. That's the important thing.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what some of our listeners, because I know some of our listeners read a lot too, so I'd be interested to know what they're reading and what inspires them.
Yeah. So as we wrap up the show, why don't we do that? Why don't you let us know if you have a book you want us to check out and talk about on the show, or if you want to come on the show and talk about a book you read that you think we'd really like. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, all at Liquid Carnage. If you have any suggestions for our EP Tom for reading, he's always up for the sci-fi stuff. Hit him up on Twitter and Instagram at liquid_EP.
I think the biggest thing is find books that interest you.
Yes.
Whatever it is, if it's sports, if it's history, find a book that interests you. And you know, I can honestly say that as a public service announcement, reading over the last year and a half has opened my mind to areas that I never even thought were possible.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the age-old adage: reading is fun. Demento.
Yeah, there we go. Reading is fun. And then if you find out that Sasquatches are Sasquatches or Sasquatch eyes,
Bigfoot. Bigfoot.
Bigfoot
Big feet.
or big feet.
Bigfoot. Big feet. Bigfoot. A pack of Bigfoot. A herd of Bigfoot. A troop of Bigfoot. They called it a troop.
Okay, a troop. All right, that'll work.
So yeah. I mean, you never know what interest might come out of this for you.
Exactly. So
just so we're clear, will there not be a Liquid Carnage Bigfoot expedition?
Oh, hunt the mighty Bigfoot, huh?
Yeah.
I'll probably pass on that, but I'll let executive producer Tom, or if we want the intern Jason to go with you, I'd be more than happy to let someone take my spot.
I would probably have to take our buddy Brian with us because I think he'd get a kick out of it, and he's been to Iraq a few times, so I know he knows a lot more than I do about how to do things we shouldn't have to talk about on the air.
That's true. There we go. Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll make sure I save some of my vodka essential oil for you.
I appreciate that.
My coffee
I'd like to get
oil.
down to Phoenix very soon here, so I can try some.
That sounds great, man.
All right, buddy. Well, with that said, why don't you go ahead and take us home?
All right. Hey, thanks everyone for listening. We always appreciate you. That was Scott. I am Jason. And as always, if you never know quite what to say, just have yourself some Liquid Carnage.